welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has arrived in China on a two-day official visit on the invitation of the Chinese Premier, Mr. Li Keqiang. He's accompanied by a high-level delegation, including the Foreign Minister, Finance Minister, Information Minister, Railways Minister, Planning Minister, and also Chief Minister Saeed Shah. And he will be having a meeting with President Xi Jinping and will hold delegation-level talks with Premier Li Keqiang. According to the Foreign Office of Pakistan, a number of MOUs as well as agreements between the two sides would be signed during this tour of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and also, Prime Minister will be highlighting the investment opportunities for the Chinese companies in Pakistan as well. Now, Prime Minister in his tweet before the departure for China, in his tweet said that CPEC has become a landmark for China-Pakistan, and his discussions with the Chinese leadership would be focused on the revitalization of the CPEC. In a particular, similar sort of comments came from Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mr. Yao Lijian, who also said that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has become a landmark of the Pakistan and Chinese cooperation, and they look forward to this particular visit and its outcomes for the benefit of the people of the two countries, Pakistan and China. Now, Pakistan's relations with China have been seen as taller than the mountains and deeper than the oceans and sweeter than honey, and remain to be the cornerstone of Pakistan's foreign policy. We'll talk about various aspects of this relationship in this particular show, and we'll be joined by an esteemed panel of guests. But before heading into the discussion, let's watch this report prepared by our production team.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, accompanied by a high-level delegation, has reached China for a two-day visit. During this visit, the Prime Minister will meet President Xi Jinping and hold delegation-level talks with Premier Li Keqiang. Moreover, the two sides will review the all-weather strategic cooperation, partnership and exchange views on regional and global developments. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, while talking about this visit, said that Pakistan and China stand together as friends and partners at a time when the world is grappling with multiple challenges. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif added that his discussions with the Chinese leadership will focus on revitalization of CPEC, among many other things. He said that second phase of CPEC promises to usher a new era of socio-economic progress that will uplift quality of our people's lives, and there is a lot to learn from Chinese economic miracle. Meanwhile, Minister of Planning and Development Iqbal said that several MOUs and agreements will be signed during Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to China. He added that two sides are committed to commence work on ML1 and Karachi Circular Railway. He noted that ML1 will have a positive impact on economies of Pakistan and China. The Minister of Planning and Development, Iqbal, also said that industrial cooperation will be promoted under the CPEC, which will also create job opportunities. Iqbal showed confidence that the outcome of Prime Minister's visit to China will be far-reaching.
As you watch the report now, this particular visit by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to China comes at a time after the historic 20th Congress of the Communist Party of China and President Xi Jinping getting an unprecedented third term as the leader of the country. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif happens to be one of those few world leaders who has been invited to China, and the discussion on a range of issues, the cooperation, the strategic cooperation between Pakistan and China would be reviewed between the leadership of both the countries. Let's bring in our panelists, and we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Ali Salman. He is Executive Director, Prime Institute, Policy Research Institute of Market Economy. Mr. Ali Salman, thank you very much for being on the show today. We really appreciate your time. And on Skype, we are being joined by Mr. Masood Khalid, who is former ambassador to China. Mr. Masood Khalid, thank you very much for your time also at Views on News. We really appreciate that. Now, let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Ali Salman. When we talk about a Prime Minister's tweet today before his departure for China, he said his discussions with the Chinese leadership would be focused on the revitalization of the CPEC. Vis-a-vis CPEC, and overall, if you look at this particular visit, the timing of it, what is the significance of this visit, and what should be expected on the both sides?
Well, thank you for having this important conversation. And I think the visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to China at this important juncture is quite critical. And I agree that this can pave the way for revival of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC as we call it. Historically, it was the previous era of PMLN in 2013 when CPEC started, and we witnessed significant improvement in the implementation of the project. We saw investments of about $50 billion which have been flown into Pakistan over the last few years, and particularly PMLN earlier tenure. And it led to successful completion of many infrastructure projects, including the independent power projects, as well as the infrastructure such as Gwadar Airport, Gwadar Port, and have several important highways. And the second phase, which should have started actually much earlier on, was actually the special economic zones, building upon the successful infrastructure development which was carried on in the previous time. The goal of both countries was that we'll have more business-to-business collaboration, we'll have better trade facilitation, and so that the financial returns offered to Chinese investors can be realized. That, unfortunately, in the previous PTI tenure could not be materialized, and there are various reasons for it. So therefore, we are hoping that this is an important time when the recent visit of the Prime Minister will hopefully revive some of these projects. But also importantly, I think it will also offer an opportunity for a reassessment to both countries and respective the government leaders to seek the benefit for the economies, for citizens, and for businesses of both countries.
Right, let's move to Mr. Masood Khalid. Mr. Masood Khalid, what is the significance of this particular visit at a time when Pakistan's economy has also been hit very hard, especially in the wake of the recent devastating floods? And similarly, we see a kind of a recession in the global economy at the same time. Now Pakistan and China joining hands in such a big project, which is flagship project of the BRI. The significance, of course, to meet these challenges increases manifold.
Well, thank you very much. I think there are 4 points which need to be kept in mind when we talk about Prime Minister's visit to China. Number one, that this visit is taking place immediately after a historic National Congress of the Communist Party of China, where, as you mentioned, the President Xi Jinping has been elected for the 3rd time. Now, this is breaking the tradition in China, Chinese political system, because President and Prime Minister in the previous dispensation were having a tenure of 5 years each, a tenure of 10 years. But this is very significant historical political development in China, and Prime Minister during his visit will, of course, reaffirm Pakistan's solidarity and support to China and to President Xi Jinping, and pay tribute to him for steering the process of CPEC and bilateral cooperation with Pakistan. This is number one. Number two, Pakistan is facing multiple challenges. As you know, the domestic political situation is also somewhat fragile. And we have been hit by these devastating floods, displacing 33 million people. You know the details. So China came forward. China sent about 60 flights, relief flights to Pakistan, apart from the other material assistance, financial assistance. So, and I expect that there may be an announcement of further increase in China's assistance for the flood-affected people. So, but the point which I want to make is that our relationship is based on the principles of peaceful coexistence, and a very core principle of that is that we do not interfere in each other's internal affairs. And the fact that Pakistan is now facing a political challenge domestically uh, shows that China wishes to sort of continue and promote and strengthen the relationship with Pakistan uh, despite the fact and the cognizance of the fact that there are political developments in Pakistan and Pakistan is facing challenges. So this is very important. I mean, the signal which Chinese government is giving, Chinese leadership is giving, that our friendship is long-lasting and timeless. So this is number two. Number three, you mentioned that our colleague, the panelist, the other panelist also mentioned CPAC. Now, CPAC is very important. CPAC, it is true that whatever tangible success was achieved, that was during the previous tenure of former Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's government. And then there was a slowdown. I will not go into the reasons, but COVID was also a factor. Now, this visit will definitely, I think, give a nudge, a push to the revival of CPAC. And CPAC's revival is very important because you rightly pointed out that the global economy is under recession. Multiple factors, we all know why. China is also coming under pressure on the foreign policy front, on the economic front, external front, internal front. Chinese economy is also contracting. So we should have to keep in mind that China's capacity will come under pressure. But as far as CPAC is concerned, because it's a flagship project of BRI, both the Chinese government and the Pakistani government are fully committed to whatever has been agreed upon to implement the project. Now, the point which I want to make is that we also have to look inwards. I have no doubt that the Chinese have the capacity to execute the projects within a matter of, within stipulated timelines. It is our systemic flaws and problems and structural issues which have also contributed considerably to the slowness of CPAC projects. We have not been able to achieve it was mentioned the special economic zones have not taken off. We talk of relocation of industry from China. If economic zones are not operational, how do we expect Chinese investors to come here? And security, of course, security, we are focusing a lot on security. Government is doing a lot and has done a lot and will continue to do that. But security is important for a potential investor. So I think a combination of factors, but I think we should look inwards after this visit and see what is needed, what steps are needed to streamline our processes, our procedures, so that CPAC can be fast-tracked. But it's very important because it's a flagship project and both countries have high stakes in the success of CPAC, and Chinese government also attaches high importance. It is a strategic project. About $26 billion worth of investment has come into Pakistan's economy, and we are talking of more, investment, which will improve our infrastructure, which will create jobs locally. So I think it is for us to really take full advantage, optimal advantage out of this mega initiative. Now, number four, regional and global developments. When Pakistan and China sit together, our leaders, and this is a tradition, time-bound tradition, that our leaders meet frequently. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had met President Xi Jinping in Tashkent in September. So my point is that when we talk, because it's a multifaceted relationship, strategy, defense, security, terrorism-related, counterterrorism, economic, business, and all that. So we discuss every issue. And now the regional situation and the global situation is undergoing rapid and fast changes, and which are impinging on the security of both China and Pakistan. I can elaborate, but within our region, Indians have been threatening us. Indian Defense Minister the other day mentioned, rather threatened, that India will snatch Gilgit and Pakistan from Pakistan. And today I was seeing that Indian Corps Commander, I believe, whatever. He also came out, with a similar warning that we are ready. If the central government in India gives us the order, we will do that. Now, the point is that these are menacing, although India cannot do anything given our defense capability, but we have to be on the watch. Now, this threat also uh, impinges on the security of China because this region, first of all, Gilgit-Baltistan is the entry point of CPAC, or CPAC route passes through there. So this is, and then uh, this is an extended region where Ladakh is involved. China has its claims, territorial claims on India, and there is a dispute, border dispute between them. So all these issues, I'm sure, will be discussed. Indo-US strategic nexus. That's very important, and I need not go further. I think I'll stop here.
Mr. Masood, Khalid, you have very elaborately and comprehensively shed light on various aspects of what could be expected out of this visit by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to China. I'll come back to you with certain points that you've already raised. Let's talk to Mr. Ali Salman. When we talk about the CPAC and its significance, especially for Pakistan, the second phase of the CPAC is basically focused on industrialization. Now, what exactly, as Mr. Masood Khalid also said, that it is up to us to provide that kind of an environment, especially to the Chinese companies, so that there could be boost in economic growth for ourselves at the same time as well. Now, what sort of a mechanism or a policy do you think the Pakistani authorities should chalk out and implement when it comes to the robust industrialization here in Pakistan, especially vis-a-vis the special economic zones?
Yeah, well, I think many important points were highlighted by Masood Khalid Saab, and I tend to agree with that. And in addition, I would say that the quality of regulation, the quality of business regulations need to be significantly improved. In terms of the Chinese investors have complained in the recent few years that the speed with which government agencies would handle requests for setting up the businesses or let's say allowing the banking transactions has been rather slow. And so just like Pakistan has recently overcome the hurdles by the FATF by successive efforts to reform its system, I think we need a similar outlook and reassessment of our own regulatory environment. Also, this is important to highlight that the quality of labor and the quality of skills which Pakistan has as compared with China needs to be significantly improved. Because whenever you talk about business to business collaboration, relocation of industry from China to Pakistan, ultimately, why they would consider relocation to Pakistan if Pakistan or Pakistani businesses cannot offer any competitive advantage, right? So competitive advantage can come in terms of labor, more efficient labor, which is unfortunately not the case. So we need to perhaps learn a lot from our Chinese counterparts in terms of how they have organized their businesses at large scale, not only within China but also let's say global supply chains. And so I think that is one important roadblock. The other important thing is for us to remember is that Pakistan already has an FTA, free trade agreement with China, which for which we already have now entered second phase, which was signed about 3 years ago. And there has been a lot of concerns from business community from Pakistan that Pakistan has not been able to take the due advantage of FTA because of internal industry structure issues, some tariff issues. Just to give you a very broad number, the current level of the trade between Pakistan and China is roughly about $20 billion, out of which Pakistan last year exported about $3 billion and imported from China about $17 billion. So although the trade deficit itself is not necessarily harmful always, but the growing trade deficit and the fact that Pakistan has not been able to benefit from FTA, duty-free access to Chinese market, suggests that our businesses have not been organized at the level where it can produce competitive products to Chinese market.
So what exactly lacks over here? How that very clearly depicts that we do have a very low industrial base, and in order to enhance that, what exactly those factors we should be considering? As Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has also said that we take inspiration from the Chinese economic miracle, and in that way, what they have achieved in order to create earlier as a moderately prosperous society, and now the modern socialist country in its whole sense. What sort of things do you think Pakistan can learn immediately in order to reap the benefits and dividends of this cooperation?
Well, in terms of political structure, obviously we are very different. We are a multi-party, comparative, democratic system, and we should remain that way. Now, within that limitation and within that broad political environment, we need to realize that unless we can improve the business efficiency, as I mentioned, let's say if I can talk about technological upgradation. Now, technological upgradation is possible through a freer flow of capital and also technology, and in improving the linkages with the world. And unfortunately, our tariff and taxes policies have not been reformed to the level where greater business integration is possible. We are still, if you look at how our taxation and tariff structure is, we are still inward looking, and that needs to be thoroughly looked at, not from a Chinese perspective, but also generally from business environment perspective. And secondly, I think it is important to highlight that where our own competitive advantage lies is perhaps around our core strengths of agriculture or agro-based industry. China, for instance, has recently increased its demand from Pakistan in terms of sesame exports, red chili exports. Now, the question for us is for us to answer that why our hundreds of R&D institutions and so-called agro-based economy and farmers are not able to produce and meet the demand which is there in case of China, because our productivity issues are not being addressed, because our labor is not properly trained, and because we are not providing a stable environment in terms of financial returns to our own investors.
So when it comes to training that particular labor, what is the basic requirement? Why, as you already mentioned, there are over 100 R&D institutions in Pakistan that deal with the agro-economy. So what lacks over there? Why haven't they been able to bring in something innovative that could actually add to the overall economic outlook of the country?
Well, the answer would vary from the sector to sector, but I think, for instance, take cotton. Now, over years, our cotton yield has been reducing drastically, whereas our textile exports have been traditionally dependent on our own produce of cotton. Now, consistently, governments and also the farmers have refused or created obstacles in the import of BT cotton, and the adoption of the illicit quality of the cotton seeds has actually deteriorated the quality of cotton produced in Pakistan. So it means that Pakistan needs to seriously work on this aspect and also improve its linkages with the industry, and that advantage can then help Pakistan grow its industrial base as well as agro base, which I think still Pakistan needs to improve a lot.
Right, Mr. Salman, your point is well taken. We are now joined by another participant in the show, Mr. Kamran Yousaf, senior journalist. He's joining us on the phone line. Mr. Kamran Yousaf, thank you very much for your time at Views on News. So what are the expectations? What do you think can be achieved when it comes to Pakistan's side after this particular visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to China?
I think the main expectation is that the CPAC that has been slowed down during the previous government should be put back on track. The other major expectation by Pakistan from the China is that given the Pakistan's current precarious economic situation, particularly the dwindling foreign reserves, Pakistan is hoping that some of the loans that Pakistan has to repay in next few months will be restructured or roll over. And in the overall bilateral context, this is a significant visit given the fact that this is the first visit by Shehbaz Sharif as Prime Minister. And this is also unusual given the fact that usually whenever a Prime Minister is elected in Pakistan, that China is always going to be the first or second, destination of the new elected prime minister. But it took 6 months, but it comes at a critical time, an important time, given the fact that President Xi has been given unprecedented third term as China's president. So that also indicates that in the next 5 years, or during, the government of President Xi, the priority of the Chinese government is to, of course, focus on further improving relationship with Pakistan, and of course further accelerating China-Pakistan economic corridor project. But also given the fact that the standing committee that was also announced by the China's Communist Party also includes one official who was considered as the brain behind Belt and Road Initiative. So this means that there will be increased focus on CPAC.
Now, Mr. Kamran, you have many critics of the CPAC and BRA, and specifically when we talk about CPAC, are of the view that it is more of Pakistan's dependency on China. So what does China get out of it?
I think we do understand that particularly the Western countries, they have concerns regarding this BRI or the investment model being pursued by China, because they feel that this will create more burden on countries where China is making investment, and it is not mutually beneficial. But of course that we have to take their perspective with a pinch of salt, because US considers China as a major threat to overtake them as the global power. So that's why I think they raise questions about BRI and the CPAC. But I think if we are to take advantage of CPAC or BRI, it is up to Pakistan. I don't think so that China really wants to exploit the situation in Pakistan. If, for example, as of now, we could not achieve the kind of benefits that we should have otherwise from CPAC, we should be blaming ourselves. Because during the PTI government, we saw that the CPAC was slowed down, and then there were many other bureaucratic hurdles, there were many other issues that really slowed down CPAC. So I think China sincerely wants to see Pakistan to grow economically and remain stable politically. And I think it is only up to us that how we take full advantage of this BRI and CPAC.
So, Mr. Kamran, Yousaf, do you think that Pakistan has the capacity to overcome all those bureaucratic hurdles during this revitalization phase of the CPAC?
I think Pakistan has the capacity. I think what you need to do to remove all those bureaucratic hurdles, it is up to the government. I think they know how to not just to attract investment from China, but other countries as well, because that's what's the role of the governments, that they need to facilitate, need to create an enabling environment where local investors, foreign investors feel that their investment is safe. For example, one area that Pakistan really needs to improve to ensure better security for the Chinese people. As you know that because of, the increased presence of Chinese in Pakistan, there are many forces within and outside Pakistan, those who are inimical to Chinese investment in the country, and we have seen, unfortunately, certain incidents where Chinese nationals were killed, and of course that was not acceptable to the Chinese government, because this is also one of the major reasons that in recent months, if there is a lack of progress on CPAC. So certainly it is in our hand to remove all the bureaucratic hurdles and also improve the security situation and create an enabling environment where not just the Chinese but other foreign investors can invest freely.
Right, Mr. Yousaf, when we talk about the improved security situation over here in Pakistan, over the last 2 decades, Pakistan has been the frontline ally in the war on terror, and Pakistan has successfully defeated the scourge of terrorism. And this particular thing has been highlighted by Foreign Minister Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari in the 21st Council of Heads of State of Shanghai Cooperation Organization during his virtual address to the moot. Now, we have seen certainly the incidents of terrorism in which the Chinese nationals were also killed. But Prime Minister is of the view that it remains to be the top priority of the Pakistan's government when it comes to the safety and the security of the Chinese citizens working in Pakistan. So earlier we saw there was a connection and the nexus was established between the NDS and the RAW, the spying agencies of Afghanistan and India. Mr. Masood Khalid has also said there had been threats from the Indian top officials regarding Gilgit-Baltistan. So what Pakistan at the same time had been sensitizing the international community, especially the UN, in the form of dossiers. Then we saw Kulbhushan Yadav caught red-handed for the subversive activities in Pakistan that were targeted towards the CPAC. What else needs to be done? What can Pakistan do more?
I think it is an open secret, of course, as you mentioned, that there are forces within and outside Pakistan, those who do not see the CPAC or BRI succeed. And certainly it is not surprise if India or even certain Western countries, through their proxies targeting CPAC or Chinese national. But that cannot exonerate Pakistani authorities from their responsibility. Of course, that that you will be in the eye of storm, given that China is making those investments. So we need to have, foolproof arrangements to counter all those, designs of the hostile agencies.
Right, we need to have foolproof measures in place in order to counter all those moves by the hostile international agencies. Mr. Kamran, Yousaf, senior journalist, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being on Views on News. Mr. Masood Khalid, when it comes to the security, especially of the Chinese nationals working in Pakistan, because of course they would be working with the CPAC related projects in Pakistan and China at the same time, as you already mentioned, want this project to be completed at the earliest and work in its full functioning. Pakistan had been trying its utmost in order to deal with the scourge of terrorism. Pakistan sensitized the international community a number of times about this particular scourge of terrorism, which was state-sponsored most of the time when it comes to India and its nexus with NDS of Afghanistan. What can exactly Pakistan do in order to provide that foolproof safety and security to the Chinese citizens?
No, I think we are already doing whatever is possible within our means, and the security measures and the security regime for the Chinese personnel and the Chinese assets has definitely improved over the years, and the Chinese are by and large satisfied. On and off these kind of incidents do take place, and obviously they are the enemies of Pakistan, China friendship, enemies of CPAC. Foreign countries are involved, which create this kind of scare, and basic purpose is to scare the Chinese away from CPAC. So this is the main concern, not only for the Chinese government, but also for Pakistan, because if the security situation, security protection is not there and the Chinese feel, threatened, then obviously CPAC will suffer. So I think we are already giving utmost attention to that aspect. Already security division, a special security division has been created. But I think the most important thing is to remain vigilant and to improve the skills of our law enforcement agencies and those guarding the Chinese assets and Chinese personnel. And we should also, I think, resort to more electronic means, for surveillance and for monitoring the movement of suspicious people where the Chinese assets are located. Now, coming to another point, it was mentioned that it took about 6 months. I just want to clarify that the Chinese leadership was extremely preoccupied with this very important Congress. So, and their zero tolerance policy for COVID, they did not welcome, they did not receive foreign leaders for a long period of time in recent past. So, and Prime Minister is the first one amongst very few leaders who has been invited immediately after the Congress. So this is the significance of this visit. I think German Chancellor will be there, our Prime Minister is there, and maybe another leader. So he is in the first batch, as you can say, that he's there. So this shows, and I may also recall that I think it was 2 years ago when President Arif Alvi was invited when China was not receiving any foreign leaders, and he went there to express solidarity when attempts were being made by to isolate China, after the Wuhan or after the COVID outbreak. So my point is that we should be very clear about that now. Very important points have been made by Mr. Salman in terms of ease of doing business in Pakistan. I will not go into any specifics, but I fully agree what he has said. I think if we want to take full advantage of CPEC, we will have to improve our homework. This one window business, one window, operation is nowhere at this point in time. We still have many tiers and many stages through which a potential investor and businessman has to, pass through and get permissions and licenses and this and that. I think that has to be eliminated, that has to be reduced. And then there are opportunities for the Chinese businesses. They are moving elsewhere, they are moving to other countries. So time, we cannot afford to waste time. This is an opportunity, God-given opportunity to improve Pakistan's economy. And
right, Mr. Masood, Khalid, when we talk about the mutual interest, as I already asked Mr. Kamran, Yousaf about this particular CPEC project, many critics of this project eye this project as a one-sided victory sort of a situation, that it remains to be Pakistan's dependency on China. So would you like to shed a little bit of light regarding what interests Chinese are securing through this CPEC project? Is it saving that cost through this transit route and saving those number of days for their transit through the Gawada port to the rest of the continents, particularly when you talk about Africa and the Middle East?
True, partly true, partly true. China is saving on distance, China is saving on cost. Once the CPEC route operationalizes fully, CPEC route is not operationalized fully. We are still working, number one. Number two, one must keep in mind that this is part of a massive disinformation campaign against BRI and CPEC, which our detectors are engaged in. They want to discredit China, they don't want to discredit CPEC, they don't want to discredit BRI, and they don't want to create a dent in Pakistan-China relations. So we should be cognizant of these attempts which are being made. Secondly, I want to ask, does China need investments? Being the second largest economy of the world, China has the largest foreign exchange reserves. Do they need the foreign exchange reserves? China is the largest trading nation of the world. China is the largest manufacturing base in the world. They are a country which is they're transiting from a developing to a middle-income country. All these things are needed by Pakistan. So right now, CPEC is to the advantage of Pakistan more than China. And China is also working on multiple corridors. 10,000 cargo trains are going from China to Europe, passing through Central Asian republics, right up to UK, United Kingdom, and Holland and Germany. So China is, quite comfortable in that sense. But Pakistan's stability, Pakistan's economic prowess is important for China because of our friendship, because of our strategic, the strategic importance of this relationship. So China wants to help Pakistan. CPEC is a vehicle to help Pakistan, but we should understand, we should not be, led away by the disinformation campaign, and we should guard against such propaganda. Now about the debt. When we talk of debt, China's debt is about 10% of total, 10 or 11% of foreign debt Pakistan owes to multilateral financial institutions and other lenders. And if these, for example, there was, a remark by a very senior official from a Western country who said that Pakistan should also go to China and seek, redressal as far as Chinese debt is concerned. I want to ask, why the same concession facility is not extended to us by these IFIs, World Bank and IMF. They could also, waive off or reschedule our debts. So uh, the whole idea is to the whole purpose is to find faults with CPAC. There will be problems. CPAC will face challenges. We have to
Right,
show.
your point is well taken. Mr. Masood, Khalid, beg your pardon for the interruption. I'll come back to you with another very important question. At the end of the show, Mr. Ali Salman, you were silent since a long time. So you were about to say something regarding what China gets out of CPAC.
Well, and I was silently learning also from
Please
other
go ahead.
co-panelists. I think a couple of things had to be also mentioned. Well, first of all, China is a growing economy, and although China has built a significant foreign forex reserves, but any economy needs to be continuously engaged, and it has to make a transition from middle income to and then eventually to a upper middle income over the next few years, while it is also managing a complex political structure. So China will have its own challenge, and in that context, the whole Belt and Road Initiative was originally conceived, improving connectivity across different regions, which is of course in China's favor also. For instance, the more efficient transition of its industrial produce and improving the access to other markets. So these are all the benefits. But also at a micro level, when it comes to Pakistan and CPEC in particular, the significant portion of the investment which came into Pakistan in the previous tenure was in the case of power projects. Now, we know that power projects, IPPs as we call them, have become a major challenge as far as the energy governance in Pakistan is concerned. If you look at ever increasing circular debt, 2.5 trillion rupees it has crossed. It has become the most important economic challenge for Pakistan at the moment. And part of the challenge is the agreements which we made to China, in terms of the returns in dollars, while the rupee was significantly depreciated. And I think the previous government has tried to renegotiate some of the terms. And I hope that the present government will also bring it on the table that given the situation in Pakistan's economy, perhaps we need to go back to that arrangement and see what kind of mutually advantageous terms can be drawn.
So what about
one point I'd like to add from the concerns angle is the idea of a level playing field, right? So when we talk about investment, historically in Pakistan's economy, Americans have invested, Japanese have invested, European companies have invested, and they are still there in Pakistan's economy. We use their products, and we are familiar with their names for a number of decades. Now, the concern for
is it only related to the imported products that we receive from these countries,
or just production in Pakistan?
So that comes in the ambit of the foreign direct investment?
That's coming.
So that seems to be very low as far as Pakistan's.
Historically, Pakistan, yes, that's right. We have received a very low level of FDI in last few years, but I'm saying that FDI in terms of the stock, which we have accumulated over last few decades, is quite significant from other nations also. So I think for the continuation of the investment environment, not just for China, but for everyone, we need to ensure that we offer a level playing field in terms of whether we're talking about rate of returns or the most recent demand from China is for instance the IPPs is opening of this special account, escrow account, where the 22% of all the payments, energy payments, have to be deposited by government of Pakistan, regardless of the actual purchase. So some of these terms have been or demands have been already met. I think the most recent discussion by the ACNIC was focused on that. It will help improving Chinese confidence. But broadly speaking, I think Pakistan needs to offer a level playing field for all investors. And lastly, my point is that in terms of the local development, we talk about Gwadar. Now, Gwadar is the linchpin of CPEC, right? So if Gwadar is not properly developed, which includes not just the port, which includes the city of Gwadar, which includes water development, which includes how many citizens of Gwadar are actually productively and meaningfully employed in these projects, there will be some level of discontent which needs to be
Your
addressed.
point is well taken. Mr. Ali Salman, Executive Director, Prime Institute, Policy Research Institute of Market Economy, thank you very much for your time, for being on Views on News. We really appreciate that. And we were also joined by Mr. Masood Khalid, former ambassador to China, on Skype. Mr. Masood Khalid, thank you very much for your time also at Views on News. We really appreciate that. Indeed, this is very much anticipated visit by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to China. And as per his tweets, his discussion with the Chinese leadership is going to focus on the revitalization of the CPAC. Now, previously we've seen CPAC being instrumental in creating job opportunities over here in Pakistan, as well as it also added in the overall GDP growth rate in Pakistan. Now, the CPAC Phase 2 is actually based on and focuses on the massive industrialization in Pakistan and the development of renewable energy also, and the hydropower energy production in Pakistan. Besides the value addition, the agricultural development, network of special economic zones, as well as the health capacity building come as the value addition to CPAC Phase 2. So let's see what the two sides and the authorities of the two sides come up with, and what sort of MOUs and agreements to cooperate economically and other sort of fields is done during this visit by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. With this, we come to the end of today's show. Until the next one, take good care of yourselves.